What is the most egregious manner you have witnessed someone deceive their spouse? My uncle acted as the man's attorney during his 15-year marriage to his ex-wife. Extremely acrimonious breakup when they divided the goods equally. Even the plot of land on which their home was built. She made the decision to construct a home just behind the old one. Remember that there was a good 200 yards or more separating the two home sites. The residences faced one another from the rear. As the home is being built, my uncle receives a call from a customer who wants to know if the predicament he got himself into was legal. He apparently saw his ex-wife every day, because she used to spend a lot of time in her backyard. He got a female dog and gave it the same name as his former spouse. Upon letting his dog back inside, after she had been outdoors, he would exclaim, "Susan, you B-word, get in here." In addition, he would scream if she urinated on the flowers. "I'm sorry, Susan, but stop peeing on the flowers." Alternatively, "Susan, you B-word, stop excavating." The dog was registered under the name Susan, and she was in fact a female dog, so even if the ex-wife called the police on him a few times, nothing could be done. That's all then. Although they had split up for 10 years, the pair didn't formally file for divorce until recently. He set his house on fire and faxed her the ownership transfer documents because she was going to inherit it. However, he may be facing jail time for arson. As part of a divorce involving a partner at my legal firm and a partner at another large law firm, I worked at a law firm that was subpoenaed. More than 70 subpoenas were sent by the woman to banks, businesses, financial organizations, and so on. She was certain he had secretly stashed away more than $20 million abroad. It became so bad that she was trying to piece together his huge conspiracy puzzle by digging out receipts from 25 years ago. Ultimately, the judge declared this to be absurd after she had hired 7 different solicitors and spent $1.5 million on legal expenses. No conspiracy existed, and you have no claim to any share of this imaginary $20 million. Remember, he was a partner in a sizable legal firm that was operating in this manner. Despite earning millions of dollars annually throughout her career, she seemed to become insane. A protective order was issued against the spouse by the bad separation wife. Quite typical. Not a bad man, but not a very good one either. His mother had been dying for a year after the divorce. Before she passed away, he urged his sister to have a conversation with his ex-wife and to take the kids to visit her in the hospital. Wife never did. Rather, she went to court and claimed that by attempting to get in touch with her, he had broken the restraining order. You cannot get in touch with someone via a third party. Despite his admission and explanation of the circumstances, he was deemed to have violated the directive. While he was incarcerated, his mother passed away, and his wife never took the children to see her. A tale from my legal profession parents. Therefore, the automobile was a major source of conflict between the husband and wife during the divorce process. The husband finally gives up after a protracted protest that he would never let the wife to have the automobile in return for something wonderful, like one of their vacation cottages. It comes out that he had been driving the vehicle in a large circle around the city for 3 hours every day, putting thousands and thousands of miles on it, and essentially destroying its value. It was astounding how much thought and resentment went into that. During graduate school, I provided some consulting services to 2 divorce attorneys. An airline pilot for a living was their client. There was a significant income gap because his wife was a part-time worker. The divorce was not pretty. Tax season arrived during the proceedings, but before to the final decree. The wife's lawyer contacts my people and says, her accountant phoned and they can save approximately $8,000 apiece by filing jointly if they simply share their W-2s. My boys told the spouse that information. Screw her, she's going to lose $8,000 more than I will, he adds. Man, you're as cold as ice. In the Netherlands, if your income falls below a specific level, the government will cover the majority of your legal expenses. This effectively implies that if the divorce goes on for a long time, the spouse with the regular income will have to pay a lot if one of them makes little to no money and the other does. I've seen cases approach absurd levels of billable hours, since there are many of ways to stretch things out. But there's a catch to this. Your attorney receives a fixed salary from the government. We still log the hours in these instances because, should the money you receive after a divorce or anything surpass a particular amount, you are obligated to pay your own lawyer. At the end of the divorce process, this one lady who felt she was playing her ex-husband by taking a long time to file for divorce received a compensation of 40,000 euros. Unfortunately, she was forced to pay back the majority of those legal fees right away. There was a feeling of fairness there. Demonstrates over and again that attorneys are typically the only ones who truly win in conflicts. This banker has seen several instances where a shared overdraft or credit card suddenly appears right before a divorce, completely surprising one of the parties. Depleted to nothing, naturally. It's particularly awful when young children or students experience heartbreak following a breakup and accumulate unmanageable debt. I knew a man whose wife had slept with another man. carried his child, and kept the marriage a secret from him. They then begin the divorce process for other reasons. After a paternity test, the spouse discovers the child is not his, but the courts decide that it is still in the child's best interest for him to continue paying child support. I managed the divorce of a husband who worked as a CVS cashier and a wife who was a teacher. I spoke on behalf of the wife. The woman provided for her husband, their 2 kids, and herself, thereby making her the family's primary provider. It should be mentioned that one of the kids had severe autism and needed expensive, time-consuming therapy and schooling. Living alone, the husband filed a provisional spousal support lawsuit against the wife, who was raising both children, throughout the divorce proceedings. Although he fulfilled all the legal requirements to be eligible for it, it just seemed shady. The judge disproved every fact on the day of the hearing and took 20 minutes to rip the husband a new one. He referred to him as a repulsive being who embodied every flaw in civilization. The judge then admitted that he was powerless and had to approve the spousal support, but he made it clear to everybody that he didn't think highly of the husband. The spouse kept telling my sobbing client, just like Goodfellas, screw you, as we were leaving the court. It was the very worst of humanity. Although I'm not a divorce attorney, working as a banker allows me to have some intimate knowledge of people's private lives. One of my customers told me this. In essence, the divorce was simple, but since I'm a professional, I have no interest in knowing why. However, I'm concerned about his finances. The breadwinner in the home was my boyfriend. I think he was a construction foreman, that is, he was in charge of scheduling, overseeing, and compensating his workers. He was excellent. It seemed that his spouse wanted everything. The fact that she had taken his yacht, which he had bought before ever meeting her, however, really infuriated him. The ironic issue is that she lacks the funds to use a truck or any other vehicle to transfer the boat. He was so forced to transport his boat legitimately to the location where she was residing using his vehicle, and just leave it there. His boat was gone. At the conclusion, he inquired about my age. I informed him that it is 21. He advised me against getting married. At the end, I get to keep all I own. I witnessed a future ex-wife argue angrily about a career military man's disability payments who was still serving. She didn't care about the legal bills because she had a new boyfriend to finance her. She so dragged out the divorce and asset split process for months since her soon-to-be ex-husband's disability benefits had not yet been received. The entire sum to which she would have been qualified? Around $400. Prior to the Supreme Court's ruling that disability benefits are not marital property, this occurred. It was some extremely trivial nonsense. First married couples divorce with a child. Child custody goes to the wife. Child support is paid by husband number 1. Wife weds second husband. The second spouse adopts the kid. Since husband number 2 is now the legitimate father, husband number 1 is no longer obligated to pay child support. The second wife and husband file for divorce. Husband number 2 is required to give the kid child support as a result of the adoption. Wife remarries first husband. Even if the kid now resides with the original father, husband number 1, the adoptive father, husband number 2, is still required to pay child support. My spouse, who practices divorce law, informed me about this one. While going through a divorce, the couple continued to live together, albeit with separate bedrooms and all. When the husband would buy a snack, such as chips or crackers, he would bring it home to his soon-to-be ex-wife, who would never open the bag and smash the food until it was reduced to dust. He would so always be let down when he tried a food that he had assumed to be novel. For this, he did not get any kind of compensation, including a restraining order. Still, he was furious about the dust nibbles. As a court clerk, I dealt with a lot of divorce paperwork. You would be surprised at how many individuals bring nude photos of their soon-to-be ex-partners to court to be used as proof. The purpose of the images is to humiliate them, not because they are related to the divorce process in any manner. Anybody who wishes to look can access the court file and all of the exhibits because, unless the judge seals them, court files are public records. The most miserable division is family court. Never email someone naked photos. She discovered that her spouse had cheated on her. She once returned to their former home and replaced all of the curtain rods with shrimp. The spouse, who was attempting to sell the house, was unable to identify the source of the odor. Because of the scent, he ends up selling it for far less than what it was worth. In the end, the wife made the purchase. The spouse was a decent guy who provided for the family and did a wonderful job of being a father to the children. His goal was to end the divorce as quickly as possible, but his wife, who had cheated on him, seemed to want everything, including his soul. She received the house, child custody, and alimony, but thousands of more dollars were spent on legal bills by both parties concerning a journal and a vase. The grandma of the spouse owned both of these objects. They were the only items she had before moving to the U.S. that had survived the Holocaust. In the end, the judge decided that the wife also had ownership of those things. She immediately destroyed the notebook and crushed the vase with a hammer after getting her hands on them. She placed the fragments of the vase and the journal's ashes at the door of the one-bedroom flat he was obliged to relocate into due to financial difficulties. On this case, I completed some work for the lawyer. A successful local investment dealer. Excellent clientele and a well-established practice. Wife runs a small business in the neighborhood, a favorite hobby. Makes very little money. Been attempting to conceive for a few years, collaborating with physicians and reproductive clinics. The wife conceives at last. 1,000,000 to 1 odds, carries the child, a boy. Let's fast forward several months. The wife makes a day excursion to the large city a few hours away and must go to the market for her business. The spouse was ready for this and seized the chance to have the child tested for his paternity rather than his. He knew he was firing blanks when they first started at the reproductive clinic after being screened. He then gets in touch with my employer, his lawyer, and we begin the plan. We have a PI follow his wife while we prepare the case. He goes with her to her tennis lessons, daily lunch at the country club, doctor's appointments, and hangouts with her pals. Her pals make the decision to celebrate her birthday at the country club. This is our chance. I inquire her name aloud, serve her the divorce papers, and then state the cause for the divorce. Adultery. This is an order for you to appear in the county court, blah blah. Her pals are in disbelief. She and her buddies are all found to be cheating in the same circles. We seek that the husband's name be taken off the birth certificate, and go to court to offer proof that he is not the father. The judge gives her an order to provide a list of everyone she had sex with during the acceptable window of conception, because she does not want the kid to become a ward of the state. She gives the list. 10 guys representing the whole spectrum of personality come up for the next court hearing. A trust fund prince, 2 cooks, an architect, a doctor, a tennis instructor, and a few more people to fill out the group. She mentioned John Doe, but she did not mention John Doe Jr. One was the father of the person they truly needed. Everyone was told to submit to a DNA test. Our client is successful in having his name removed from the birth certificate, as well as no alimony or child support. Wife and the baby daddy come to an agreement for a number of years' worth of support payments and child support. She did come out on top in the end. The physician was the one. She needs to relocate out of the region, and the doctor will pay for it as part of the deal. NDA executed. Because of his wealth, the doctor needed to maintain his good name and reputation. Due to the child's assured support, the court permitted the absence of the father on the birth certificate. A trust fund. When the husband closed on their house, the wife was at work, but he took his mother, who signed the documents. After several years of marriage, the woman requests the house, but her mother serves her with an eviction notice. Wife was unaware that they had been lodging rent. I received a request to manage an enforcement action following a divorce. The man owed around $5,000, had not received payment in several years, and was already facing judgment. He got in touch because he wanted the judgment against the money he discovered she was scrolling away to be upheld. Because she lacked insurance, a firehouse benefit dinner was planned to collect money for her cancer treatments. I said no. My client was an epic who detested his wife to her core. He was requested to provide 3,000 rupees a month in interim maintenance. This man goes to the bank, takes out 3,000 rupees, and presents the money to his wife in court. In theory, it's okay. He then claims he wants the bag back, forcing the wife to sit and count all the monies in court. It is, in theory, his bag. With no means of transportation, this woman is left with 3,000 coins. This man was a genius of wickedness. Prior to becoming a lawyer, I worked as a paralegal. When I tried to hunt for it, I couldn't recall the name of the case I read about. The couple's assets totaled over $15 million, with the husband possessing nearly 90% of them prior to their marriage. The husband sought to leave the wife penniless, while the courts wanted to give the wife around $2 million and give the husband the remainder. He ultimately used all of his funds to fight at every turn, submitting pointless motions and generally acting in an unprofessional manner. The parties' combined assets after paying legal expenses, fines, charges, and money lost on scams came to around $500,000. He was left utterly bankrupt when the wife received all of it from the courts. Man strikes it lucky in the lotto. Millions. Keeps his wife in the dark. In theory, half of it is hers. He merely has to underline that tax has already been taken on tax papers, which his wife always signs without glancing at. Separation. Husband doesn't cause any trouble. Hefty divorce settlement, which her attorney suggests she accept. He relocates to a nearby town, leads a regular life, and eventually drifts away from everyone he knows. Then he moves once again, isolating himself from everyone. At that point, he begins to spend the money. It's a bit of a tale, but allow me to tell it. The man has spent his entire life on the family farm. Although his father has already died away, his mother still resides with him. One day, as he is starting to become a little older himself, his mother believes he needs to get married. On the internet, he locates someone. Well, she already has a teenage daughter, but whatever. They are all living together on the property as things progress. He chooses to let her handle the books while he tends to the land. When the wife discovers how much money this guy genuinely has, she begins to spend a lot of it. Sends the Lee daughter to elite schools. Begins making costly purchases, AITA, yet she fails to make the farm's bill payments. The land remained mortgaged. He learns about it when the bank calls to inform him that nothing has been paid and he is past due. In the end, he forfeits the property. He has a heated disagreement with his spouse. Despite the fact that the house was always theirs, she has him and his mother evicted when they split up. He thus departs for the city. It annoys him. He had spent his entire life farming in the country, after all. He then gives his pal a call and requests permission to return to the city and stay at his house. He gets to his friend's residence. The companion isn't present. Rather, he discovers his former spouse and her children. He lost his temper. Taking a revolver from his car, he shot both of them, killing them. My spouse, an attorney, has told me a few anecdotes. When the wife of the guy who was abusing their 5-year-old kid learned about it, she left him and requested custody. In order to prevent his wife from receiving custody as well, the resentful Saab accused her of abusing the daughter. The girl went to his wife's parents, and all of a sudden the husband realized that she had also been abused by her wife's parents. Once more, all of this was done to prevent the wife from being granted custody. While the investigations were ongoing and the wife and her parents were found not guilty, the daughter ended up in foster care for a whole year. After serving his sentence, the father is now eligible for supervised visitation. Then there was a woman who was married to a man who made his profession selling firearms and had a deep passion for hunting. Since she was aware that he would no longer be permitted to possess or carry a pistol, she accused him of domestic abuse. Then, a divorcing lady persuaded her soon-to-be ex to get back together, wooed him, offered him booze, and eventually tossed him out of the house. She reported spotting someone swerving on the road and phoned the police. Due to the DUI, he was detained, sent in jail, and lost his job. He drove for a living. Last but not least, a guy offered his wife custody of their twin girls in exchange for her agreeing not to pursue spousal support or request a division of their assets. After her approval, the divorce was completed. On the day the documents were signed, he pursued full custody of the twins, claiming he could provide better care for them since he lived in a larger home than she could, he earned more money, and so on. He urged his attorney just to leave her with as little as possible. He pursued one of them and permanently divided the twins when the judge refused to give him custody according to their prior agreement. There are countless tales, but the ones that terrify me the most usually proceed like this. Wife gives birth, husband is completely uninterested in the child, and even feels that the child is taking his focus away from him. Informs wife that she has all financial and parental responsibility for this kid. Wife understands her husband is a jerk partner because he is a jerk parent. In fact, she would much prefer be a single mom than put up with his man-child antics. A petition for divorce is filed. The husband's attorney informs him that he will pay less in child support the more time he spends with his child. The spouse begins attending medical visits, engaging in activities with the kid, and generally fulfilling the role of a parent. The two have since gotten a divorce. Husband is a devoted parent and owns a 50/50 timeshare. Wife only wanted her husband to show interest in the child, but in order to get it, she had to file for divorce. This was a case I handled while I was a legal clerk. The wife and 2 children relocated with their husband, who was stationed overseas due to his fancy work. While the wife was a stay-at-home mother with no income of her own, he had an extremely high salary that covered all of his costs. After the marriage broke down and they returned to Sweden, the wife filed a lawsuit to receive alimony, to which she was legally entitled, so that she may continue to care for the children once every other week. She struggled to find employment again after a prolonged period of unemployment. No savings, etc. The spouse suddenly claimed to be broke even though he had not had to pay any expenses in several years. He was compelled to spend the little $1 million he had on an apartment in one of the priciest neighborhoods in order to provide him with a place to live. Remember to click the bell to enable alerts after subscribing. To continue listening to all the stories, play the playlist in the background using the link at the top of the description. Try Am I the Jerk as well, if you enjoy Am I the Genius. Additionally linked in the description. In any case, many thanks for seeing, and I hope to see you all again soon.